predicting match day 5 of the Champions League. Ajax versus Benfica. It's literally the two worst teams in the Champions League. I want to go for a draw, but Ajax are also doing terrible in the league, in their Eredivisie. So I'm going to go Benfica. Ajax has been stinking out the show. Benfica has been as well, but they look better. 2-1 to Benfica. Galatasaray versus Union Saint-Gilloise. I'm going for a draw, a 2-2 draw. Look, Union, they haven't had the best Champions League season, but they are absolutely killing it in the Belgium League. And anyone that goes to Ajax at the moment can win. So Galatasaray, it was understandable how he won that last game. But also, Victor Osimhen might not be available. And I don't think you can keep up this winning streak any longer. But it's going to be a really close game. Bodo Glimt versus Juventus. Bodo Glimt are at home. And Juventus, even after getting their manager sacked, have drew multiple times with their new manager. The new manager is undefeated, but I'm going for another 1-1 draw. Look, Bodo Glimt in the last game played very well and was very unlucky to not get a draw against Monaco. They probably should have. They hit the post and they looked like maybe even the better team versus Monaco. So they were unlucky, and going away from home is very, very hard. And considering Juventus are not really trustworthy at the moment because they've been drawing loads, a draw makes sense. I mean, they've got 3 draws in 4 Champions League games. Napoli versus Qarabag FK. There was no Kevin De Bruyne in the last Frankfurt game for Napoli. And overall in the Champions League, they're not doing the best. And there are other injuries which are probably going to make this game closer than it should be. I'm still going to home advantage, going 2-1 to Napoli. But trust me, do not underestimate Qarabag. They did very well versus Chelsea, but this time it's away from home. And to be fair to Chelsea, they weren't starting with Enzo Fernandez. And they weren't starting with the strongest defenders. But it's going to be a close game. Marseille versus Newcastle United. Newcastle has to travel over to Marseille. Even though Newcastle have a terrible away record, Newcastle are cooking. Newcastle just won 2-1 versus Man City. If Lewis Hall and Livramento plays them fullback, Newcastle will win this. So Newcastle are going to win this 3-1. Marseille, yes, they have been looking good after the loss versus Atalanta in their personal league. I still feel like in the Champions League, they're just not very good for some reason in terms of getting results. And Newcastle, trust me, how big that win was against Man City was massive. If Livramento and Lewis Hall start, Newcastle will win. Dortmund versus Villarreal. I'm going 3-2 to Dortmund. It's going to be an overall close game because Dortmund haven't looked the best. They lost 4-1 to Man City, and ever since then, they have not been looking convincing in Bundesliga whatsoever. They have gotten a couple of draws since then, but I still think they're going to win because Villarreal in the Champions League are doing awful. Villarreal have only got 1 point in 4 games. So Dortmund, I think you can win, especially how exciting your games are in the Champions League. 3-2 makes sense. But Villarreal is going to give it a good shot because Dortmund do look unconvincing and Villarreal are looking good in their La Liga league. Chelsea versus Barcelona. And yes, I know Chelsea only got a 2-2 draw versus Qarabag, but if Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez actually start this game, which they obviously didn't against Qarabag, and if they start a different defender to Hattie, which made 2 crucial mistakes versus Qarabag, and was probably the sole reason why Qarabag got 2 goals, because of Hattie in the defence for Chelsea, then I think Chelsea have a very good chance. This time they're at home, and what gives me confidence Chelsea can win this 4-2 is because Club Brugge managed to get a point against Barcelona. So come on, I think Chelsea are winning. Plus, Chelsea are undefeated in November. But don't get me wrong, Barcelona is going to give it a good go. And I would not be surprised for this to be a draw or even a win to Barcelona. But if Chelsea actually play their main team, obviously Cole Palmer's not going to be there. But if Chelsea play their main team, they can definitely win it at Stamford Bridge. Etihad Stadium, Manchester City versus Leverkusen. Look, Leverkusen, I don't think you've looked the best in the Champions League. And even though Man City lost to Newcastle, It was tough at St. James's Park. It's always going to be a tough game. But Man City are still looking wonderful. And if Erling Haaland scores, they seem to win. But if Erling Haaland doesn't score, they seem to either lose or draw. So I'm going Man City to win. I believe they can keep up this amazing form, Man City. They do look really good compared to Leverkusen. 2-0. Slavia Praha versus Athletic Club Bilbao. And Slavia Praha, I was really impressed with their defence and even midfield at times. But that completely stopped when they lost 3-0 to Arsenal. And they're facing Athletic Club Bilbao, which to be honest have not been looking good. I do want to go 0-0 or even 1-1 in this game because Athletic Club Bilbao has been doing awful. All season they have not looked good. But I still think they're going to get a win. I do feel like they've got the better side on paper. And the fact that they had such a good season last season, I feel like remnants of that side is still in there. And they're going to win this 1-0. And if Nico Williams can return from injury and actually perform better than he was before the injury, then I think this can definitely be where Nico Williams shines. Pafos versus Monaco. You know what? I'm going to go for an upset. 1-1. Monaco and Ligue 1 have been looking very shaky with 4-1 losses back to back. And Pafos, they've impressed me. A 0-0 draw, down to 10 men for the entire game, drew it to Olympiacos. Same thing against Kairat, managed to draw. And just won 1-0 versus Villarreal. That's such a good win because Villarreal are doing so well. And Monaco, like I said, haven't been incredibly impressed. And the fact that they're going away from home, I'm going for a draw. Obviously, I've still got trust in Monaco because they're a really good side. And on paper, they do have better players than Pafos. But like I said, with home advantage and the way Pafos is playing, I think they can definitely get a point. Copenhagen versus Kairat. An embarrassment of a performance by Copenhagen. They deserve to lose that 4-0. Big mistakes by the goalkeeper. And allowing Van de Ven to just walk through the side like that is terrible defending, terrible goalkeeping, and honestly a shocking performance. They are not winning this 1-1 draw, especially how Kairat managed to make that game against Inter Milan close. I think definitely they can get a point, Kairat. But Copenhagen, really poor performance versus Tottenham Hotspur, like really bad. So I don't think you're winning. And Kairat, you made it a close game versus Inter Milan. Olympiacos versus Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid has been going on some shaky form, but I still think they're going to win this 3-1. Olympiacos, Gelson Martins, what a goal. He had loads of chances for Olympiacos. And to be fair, you were unlucky not to get all 3 points in the last Champions League game. But you're facing Real Madrid, and it's just going to be too hard, even at home. Sporting CP versus Club Brugge. And Sporting got a 1-1 draw in the last Juventus game. In terms of the Champions League, they're not doing too shabby. And Club Brugge managed to get a 3-0 draw versus Barcelona. But this time away from home against Sporting, which are doing so well in the Portuguese league. I can see Sporting nicking a 2-1 win. Eintracht Frankfurt versus Atalanta. And you know what, Atalanta? You only just about won the last game against Marseille 1-0 late on. And that was some controversy at the end there. Was it a handball? Because if it was, I mean, his arm was kind of in an unnatural position. That goal was very lucky to go ahead because another referee could have said that was handball and disallowed the goal. But Atalanta still was ruthless and played very well. But in their league, in Serie A, they've gotten back-to-back losses in Serie A. And they are not looking the best. So going away against Frankfurt, which yes, haven't been looking amazing, very mediocre Frankfurt, I still feel like Frankfurt can give a good go. And I think this is going to be a 2-2 draw between two sides, which can definitely make top 24 in the Champions League. Liverpool versus PSV. Now Liverpool, what is going on with Arne Slot's tactics? I mean, playing Szoboszlai in right back is good because Szoboszlai can play well there, but he plays better in the midfield. And he does play Szoboszlai in the midfield sometimes, but he keeps on putting him in right back. Not utilising Szoboszlai to the best of his capabilities. He's not starting Ekatike, and Isak is flop. I'm sure there's still a good player in there, and I'm sure he's going to be able to get back in good form, but really at the moment, he is not. But because of Arne Slot's familiarity with the Dutch teams, facing a fellow Dutch team, I think he's going to be able to put up the right midfield and make sure Szoboszlai plays in midfield, start Ekitike, and really Salah had some good opportunities even in that 3-0 loss against Nottingham Forest. Yes, defensively they've been terrible, so I am going to go for them to concede 2 goals, but I am going to make them win 3-2. They're at home, and really PSV against Olympiacos, I thought Olympiacos played better than PSV. And Liverpool, even though they've gone on terrible form, they've still managed a clutch win against Aston Villa and a win against Real Madrid. So even though they've been doing bad in the Champions League, they continue to impress. So I don't see why they can't continue at Anfield. Atletico Madrid versus Inter Milan, and Inter Milan is one of the best sides in the Champions League. Literally top 3. But all their games, they have been playing against teams which I would say is kind of like the lower quality teams in the Champions League. This is their first proper test against Atletico Madrid, and I think they are going to drop points. They're away from home, and Atletico Madrid, they are looking really good. Alvarez continuing to perform, and yes, both sides have lost their last league game, and really both sides seems very equal in their fellow leagues. They are both in 4th position in both their leagues, and really I cannot split it. It's one of these 50-50 games. I'm going for high scoring 3-0 draw. Trust me, it's going to be a goal fest. Biggest game of the week, Arsenal versus Bayern Munich, the 2 best teams. Now, Bayern Munich, it might look like it was a close game versus PSG, but that's got to do with Luis Diaz getting a red card. It was definitely a red card, and in the first half, it was all Bayern Munich. But because of that red card, it forced Vincent Kompany to park the bus in the second half, and they almost didn't get 3 points because PSG was piling on the pressure in the second half. And really, it could have been a much more convincing win versus PSG if they didn't get that red card. So it shows how good Bayern Munich are. But they're not going to have Luis Diaz in this, which is a really crucial player missing. And yes, they've got the likes of Nicholas Jackson on the bench. And yes, they've still got Harry Kane, they've still got Elise. And by the way, Elise versus Eze, 2 former Crystal Palace teammates going against each other. And I think home advantage, and I think not having Luis Diaz is going to be crucial. 2-1 to Arsenal. I know Gabriel was injured for Arsenal, but come on, Arsenal still have a banger defence, and I think overall Arsenal are the better side, especially with home advantage, tipping it 2-1. PSG versus Tottenham. This fixture, obviously, Tottenham fans always remember in the Super Cup. They bottled a 2-0 win. It's a rematch, and I don't think they're winning. They're going away from home, even with the likes of Hakimi and a bunch of other injuries, like Dembele possibly. I still feel like they're going to lose. 3-1 to PSG. They've still got a fantastic side, PSG. And Tottenham have not been looking convincing. I don't trust them. They just lost 4-0 to Arsenal. And even against the likes of Chelsea, they were not performing well. Yes, Van de Ven is getting my goal of the... Get your predictions in the comments down below. But for now, toodaloo.